There's a lot of made-up words in psychology. We make up words that makes us feel smart. Paradigm is one of those. What is a paradigm? I love working with young people. They give me some really great answers to that question. What is a paradigm? I remember presenting this to a youth group once, and as they thought it through, one of them raised their hand and said, "Is it like 20 cents? A pair of dimes?" No. But that was clever. Paradigm is actually a word in psychology that denotes mindset. Mindset. One way to think of this is the way you see things. A pair of eyeglasses, for example. If I were to put a pair of eyeglasses on you that were tinted red here on the lens, what would the world look like to you? These are those rose-colored glasses that you've heard about. The world would take on this rosy tint, right? Because the lenses that you're wearing alter everything that you're seeing. What if we switch those out for some green ones? Now the world looks all green, right? Your lawn looks awesome. Your family, not so much. Everything's got this green tint to it. Now, did the world change? No. But the way you see it changed. And it's because of those lenses. So we might compare the lenses to a paradigm. I have to tell you about an experiment that was done with a pair of eyeglasses. Clear back in the 1800s, a psychologist by the name of George Stratton designed a pair of eyeglasses that turned everything upside down. Can you imagine wearing those? He couldn't even get anybody to sign up for this study. They thought he was nuts. So he put them on himself. And at first, as you can imagine, he was bumping into everything. He had a hard time getting through his own house. Well, after a few hours, he started to get used to it. After a few days, he was getting pretty good at getting around with everything being upside down in his perception. He stuck with it. On day 8, something really amazing happened. Do you know what happened? On day 8, everything looked normal to him, which blew him away. He took the lenses off, and at that point, everything was upside down. He had to adjust back. His own mind did exactly what your mind will do too. It corrects that image for you so that it looks normal to you. Wild, right? But we all have this experience with sunglasses, for example. You put on a pair of sunglasses, everything looks darker at first. What about after a few hours? You get used to it and everything looks normal to you. It doesn't mean that the world actually looks that way. It means that it looks normal to you because that's what you're used to. This is how paradigm works. Paradigms are set up in our mind through our experiences, and it gives us a way to view the world. In all of the reading that I've done, in all of my experience in clinical psychology, I've concluded that there are 2 determinate and distinct paradigms. And usually we're going to be on one side or the other. I've labeled these 2 paradigms the victim paradigm and the agent paradigm. You can also think of this as the negativity paradigm and the positivity paradigm. You don't have to guess too hard to figure out which one I prefer. Negativity, positivity, victim, agent. I'm not talking about a victim of crime or a victim of abuse. You could get me going on that. I'm talking about a victim pair of lenses, a victim way of seeing the world, a victim paradigm. as opposed to the agent on this side. A victim goes through life blaming. Wasn't me. And they want to blame someone or something for where they are. An agent, on the other hand, takes responsibility, which in my book, Pathological Positivity, is broken up into two words: responsibility. It's your ability to respond to something. In the negative victim paradigm, as long as we're blaming someone or something else for what's going on in our own life, we have no power to change it. I spent about 13 years doing child custody evaluations for the court. This is yuck work. Bitter, angry, divorcing people who couldn't figure out how to share their kids. And the court sent me in there. Doc, you go figure it out. Oh, that's a big job. These bitter, angry, divorcing people, who are they blaming for all of their problems? Each other. How soon is the ex going to make everything okay? Do you see the trap? As long as we're blaming, we don't have the personal power or resources to change anything. Taking responsibility is kind of like seeing your own hands on your steering wheel. And if you're not where you want to be, what are you going to do? Turn it. Take it somewhere. See, that's the agent paradigm. And victims can't do that because they're too busy blaming someone or something else for everything that's going on in their own life. It's a trap. And it will get you stuck. The bad news, that your hands are on the wheel, that you drove here, that this is your responsibility, is also the good news. Because if your hands are on the wheel, now you can turn it. You can steer it. Figure out where you want to go. On the victim side, it's all about, why me? Usually in a whiny voice. You've heard it, haven't you? Why me? Oh, I'm a good person. Why would this ever happen to me? Oh, really? How about on the agent side? Why not me? See how empowering that is? And it's just as legitimate a question. Different shade of lens that we're looking at the world through. Why not me? Am I not just as qualified as anybody else to take this on? More qualified than some people? Yeah, bring it. I got this. So much more empowering. How about, oh, I can't. I can't because, and then you give 15 reasons why you can't. That is totally a victim paradigm. As opposed to, I can, I'm not sure how, so you ask a question. How can I? Think about it in these terms. I can't, kind of like a big power switch on the side of your brain. And what position is it in at that point? I can't, shut her down. We're done. That's about all we can do here. There's no other step after I can't. As opposed to, I can. How can I? That's like turning that switch on. So that now your brain is empowered to start finding the resources that will allow you to answer whatever it is that you're facing. The answer to every problem is a conversation away. Sure, you don't know. But do you think that some of your fellow journeyers here on the planet might have the answer to your question? Have a conversation with them. I can. How can I? Whole different energy to that. Let me mention one more aspect of these two paradigms. Scarcity. Now, when we start in scarcity on the victim paradigm, there's never enough. There's not enough time, love, money, attention, whatever it is. We're constantly lacking. It starts first thing in the morning. Oh, I didn't get enough sleep last night. Sounds like scarcity, right? As opposed to, what's on this side? Abundance. There's enough. There's plenty. Did you get enough sleep last night? Why, yes, I did. See, it's a whole different answer. Now, what's the truth? Is there scarcity or is there abundance? And here's my point. There's an argument for both. Which one are you going to choose? If you choose the scarcity paradigm, if you choose the victim, the I can't, the whining about why me, and you're blaming. See, this is all victim. You're going to have a very different outcome than if you choose the agent paradigm, the paradigm of abundance, the paradigm of I can. How can I do this? The paradigm of personal responsibility. You get to choose which paradigm you're in. You don't always get to choose what happens to you. Have you noticed? If you haven't, pay attention, because life will teach you this. You don't always get to choose what happens to you, but you always get to choose your paradigm. And that's good news. Now, back to the glasses for just a minute. If I hand you a pair of eyeglasses that are tinted red, and the whole world looks red to you, it's not going to look right, is it? Because that's not what you're used to. You can get used to those. George Stratton taught us that. But it's not going to look normal at first. So if, as I'm sharing these paradigms with you, it doesn't seem right, it's probably because you're not used to it. Don't discount it just because it looks different from what you're used to. You get really good at whatever you practice. And if you have practiced a paradigm of negativity, that's okay. Probably it came from your culture, your background, your training. Sometimes we're trained, taught, and educated to think in a victim way. That doesn't mean that's the right way. But if we've practiced that, it's going to look normal to us. When I suggest a different paradigm to you, it may not look right to you at first. That's probably just because you're not used to it. Try it on. And you might need to persist for a while, like George did with those upside down glasses. You might need to persist long enough that you get good at thinking a different way. And why would you ever do that? Here's the bottom line. The outcome to victim thinking is always captivity. Captivity, some form of stuckness. In fact, that's the way it's described most often in my office. Oh, doc, I feel stuck. Okay, notice that, but it can range clear to the extreme of incarceration. The outcome to an agent paradigm, the positivity paradigm, is liberty, freedom. It creates new chances and possibilities for you that didn't exist before you chose it. And the good news is, it's always a choice. I am so glad that you're here, that you're engaged in these videos. You've probably thought of someone who could benefit as we have this chat today. Would you please share this video with them? I'll see you tomorrow. I saw